6 o'clock right now, so 6 o'clock, and welcome to the Toltec School District number 22 School Board meeting. And we will start it out with Mr. Kaysen, if you will please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now, could you read us in treasure numbers?
As
An adult and a treasure hunter, I am committed to search for all the talents, skills, and intelligence that exists in all children and youth. I believe all children are capable of success, no exceptions.
And more sounds, please. All right, everybody have a seat, and Mr. Rogers, could you help me with the roll call?
Mark Langren,
Here.
Steve Courtwright,
Here.
Tim Kaysen,
Here.
Bill Doherty,
Here.
James Gray,
Here.
all present.
We're going to move on to D, which is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any issues with the agenda at this time? Anyone speak up? So I need a motion for approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
All right, Mr. Dougherty has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Mr. Kaysen. All in favor, say aye. All against? Go to two consent agenda items. Approval of action of consent items. Anybody have any issues with this? All right, so then we need, if someone will give a motion.
Move to approve the action.
Mr. Kaysen. Okay, Mr. Kaysen has moved to approve the consent items. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Mr. Courtwright has seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against? Motion passes. All right, we move on to 3. Information discussion items. A.
Well, rumor was circulating that there was an outbreak in Arizona City Elementary School campus. I was actually contacted by the media, let them know that I composed the attached letter that there was not an outbreak at Arizona City Elementary. And the Pinal County Public Health School Benchmarks Week 29 report, which was attached, does show Toltec as in the orange for the percent positive. This is, they're behind in the count. So this is for week 29 from 7/18 to 7/24. So it says that percent positive is 8.29%, and that's in the orange. And the orange is considered moderate, and then red is considered high, and we are red in the case count, which is at that point was 228.71, and then the transmission level was considered high. At the end of last week, we had 3 classes at ACES under quarantine and 2 classes at TES going into quarantine. The numbers of positive cases continue to rise, and we now have 9 classes under quarantine. 2 of the 3 classes at ACES came back to school today, and 8 classes at TES are under quarantine. So, 8. So we have a total of 9. We continue to do all we can to protect students and staff from this virus. It's increasingly challenging to find necessary coverage in each school. Mrs. Ferguson is going to meet with the bus drivers and see if any of them would like to get some extra hours and help, be some more hands-on deck to help. I do consult with the Pinal County Health Services and attend meetings to receive updates, and school reports on positive cases are submitted. They do contact tracing, and so they would be the ones to tell us if we need to close the building or if we need to close, more than one building. They're the ones that would be the ones that would confirm with us on that. The state does not want us to close down the school entirely, so it would have to be pretty rampant for Pinal, health services to tell us to close the school. And the classes that are under quarantine continue to receive instruction. So we're working on, we were trying to, Ms. Hoffman came to meet with me today. They were trying to get together paper packets, and it was becoming too huge of a task and undertaking to accomplish. So Tim has been running around today and KG, and we have our hotspots reactivated. And so we'll be, getting those that are quarantined back online as we did last year with hotspots if they don't have internet connection. And they'll check out their device and check out a hotspot with a drive-through, and then turn them back in when they come back to campus, so that we can provide. We brainstormed a lot of different, trying to save money, trying to just come up with something. This is the best we can do. It doesn't save money, but it's best for students. So that's what we will start doing. The hotspots are now turned on, and so it's just, and Tim was checking them out last night, talked to him this afternoon. So are they in good working order, what you saw?
So far, yes. How many are there?
We're still doing inventory, but it's estimated that we had 275 last year, and it's estimated that we're about 30 down from that.
Equipment failure?
No, that weren't returned back
Oh,
to us.
we have had some failures, but the majority of the drop is non-returned devices. Can I ask a question? Can you clarify for me what you mean when you say a class is in quarantine?
So if you're in a third grade class and your teacher is Mrs. Rogers, and one of the students in our class came down positive with the virus, and all of us were in class with little Johnny, who was positive, then we all have to go home
So it's
for a
the
quarantine.
entire class.
The entire class that was, exposed to someone who was positive. In some situations, we have just the teacher that was exposed. And in other situations, so we don't quarantine the class. And in other situations, we have a student here and there. It happened over a weekend where they, became positive and didn't expose others.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it a 14-day quarantine?
We're doing 10-day.
10.
From the date of exposure. And that's for all students, regardless if they've been received the immunization or not. The Kids at Hope, are there any other questions on that? COVID is a huge, huge thing on our minds now as we go into this school year, and what we thought was going to be easier turns out to be same old, still. And this takes a lot of time. So unfortunately, it just adds to the task. And so it's a very difficult thing to try to deal with and keep up with. So, but we're doing everything we need to do. So I do want to commend Ms. Huffman. She created her own type of report that has more information, exactly when a class it has all the information that we need to know and to keep track of everything, because as we go along, it becomes a little bit difficult to keep it in your brain. So having it on paper is great, and I love her report.
Mr. Rogers, you did make one comment, if you don't mind me. If they're quarantined, it is 14 days. It's only 10 days if they thought they're ill. But if they've been exposed, so all the classes being quarantined are up for 14 days.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, any other comments or questions on COVID? So I am not a medical expert, so we just go by what, Pinal County Health Services advise us to do, as long as it's in alignment with what the state has advised us to do. So, for instance, they would like for everyone to wear masks, but we don't have that mandate because the state has otherwise. Okay. All right, Kids at Hope district-wide event, the meeting and being able to hear Danny and David's Diaz speak, and our Kids at Hope founder, Rick Miller, that was a very positive experience for all of our staff. And we were able to begin the year on a positive note. We all needed that positive shot in the arm. And I want to thank President Lindgren and also Board Member Gray for your attendance at that event. Student enrollment. Now, during the first 10 days of school, student enrollment can be a little bit hard to predict during the first 10 days of school, because during the first 10 days of school, kids stay on the roll in Power School unless the parent has come in and withdrawn them. And some parents don't do that. And so at the 10 days, if they are a no-show, then they're dropped. So what we do as a rule is that we go around and do head counts. And so we're currently showing an average of about 514 students at ACES and about 301 at TES for an average total of about 815. This doesn't include preschool. And this is considerably lower than our enrollment before the pandemic. We're not counting last year because last year was atypical. And so this is an area of concern since it drastically impacts our budget. This year we're fine because we have the ESSER 1 and 2 and 3 funds, which we've already used 1 and 2, 3, but we'll be fine this year. But if our enrollment does not come back up considerably, we will have to make some changes for next year. The ASBA, and what those changes are, we don't know. We have to just monitor everything and look at it and see where our budget stands and what we can do. The SBA 45th Annual Law Conference is scheduled to be held in Scottsdale on September 8th, 9th, and 10th. And myself, along with President Lindgren and Board Member Gray, are registered to attend. And you have your conflict of interest forms, and most of you have already filled those out and turned those into me, so thank you. That's all.
All right. Moving on to information discussion item B, the financial report.
Okay, so you have your finance report in front of you. You will see, I made just a little bit of a change to the report this month simply because the budget that was adopted and presented and adopted was one that was based on the government's previous funding. They since have adopted their new funding. You're going to be adopting a budget tonight based on that funding. So I did not include the budgeted amounts in here, but you can see that our total expended amount, the amount we've already spent, and the total encumbered amount, which is money that we've committed, is 6.275 million, which is going to be more than the budget that we are going to adopt tonight. The difference in that budget will be made up for with the ESSER funds, which is the COVID relief funds. We'll be diverting some of our expenditures over to that to help us meet
our budget, which we can do because COVID has caused our enrollment to be down so far. So we can divert some of our expenditures over there as that. So that's where we're at right now with the actual budget. You'll be, like I said, you'll be adopting a budget here in just a little while, a revised budget from the one that we've done previously. And then in the grants portion, the couple things that I just wanted to quickly highlight is that the project to replace the C and D roofs over here at Toltec Elementary School is out for bid. The bids are due back this Thursday, so we should be moving forward with that project fairly quickly. As long as we can get all the information to the school facilities board that they need prior to their next board meeting, hopefully we can get that approved at their next board meeting and then move forward on that project to hopefully start during fall break and maybe even be completed during fall break. So we'll have those roofs completed at that time. And then the other part that I wanted to highlight is down underneath the government grants for the elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund 3. Part of the requirement for that grant is that we have to seek stakeholder input on how we're going to utilize those funds. We are going to be sending out a survey later this week that will be going out to all, anyone that lives within our district can actually take the survey and give us their input on how those funds, they would like those funds to be used. So that will be going out later this week. We are compiling all the questions that we want to put together and getting that out right away. Any questions?
All right, if there are no questions, we move on to information discussion item C, Teacher of the Year recognition.
Miss Laura, yeah, could you come on, please? Laura Tapia is the 2020-2021 Toltec Elementary School Teacher of the Year. What a distinguished honor, and it is even better news that she is continuing on through the interview process. And so she's competing against other teachers across the state for Rural Teacher of the Year. So keep cheering her on. We're cheering her on to get that. If you can hold that, and then I'll come around to you.
As a teacher, 16, 17 years, and I'm going into my 21st year here. Well, the district has me at 20, but it's 21 anyway, so 21 years at Toltec.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time. Now we move on to D, reopening in-person instruction and distance learning plan public hearing.
The plan was updated to notate that we have required students to have a temperature check before boarding the bus when being transported to school. And if the parent is at the bus stop, then if the student has a temperature, then they can take the student home. If the parent's not there, then the student is masked, put on the front seat, taken to school, and then escorted off the bus. And then the family's called, the student will be sent back home. If a student has a health issue or there is a health concern with a member of the household and a parent or guardian makes the request that the student be allowed to participate in teacher-led distance learning, then that request will be granted regardless of if the student has met any of the criteria for distance learning enrollment. We ran into this, we had a criteria that was set, and then Ms. Hoffman was coming to me with inquiries from parents that they were inquiring, along this line, and I don't want to take, like I said, I'm not a health expert, so if there's any kind of issue that might arise then we want to be very cautious. So we do allow those students to engage in online learning. Summer school will be offered in shorter sessions. This will come up a little later on in the meeting in an attempt to keep students actively engaged, since attendance in the month-long summer school June session tapers off after the first couple of weeks. So summer school was originally scheduled for 4.5 weeks, June 1st through June 30th, 2022. And it's going to continue to be offered in that exact period of time, but in shorter sessions. So summer school is now scheduled as tutoring sessions for the second week of fall break, the second week of spring break, and then the first 2.5 weeks of June. And so then we go with the 4.5 weeks. And then finally, the plan was shared at the district board meeting on July 12, 2021, and input was requested. The plan will now be printed and sent home with every student this week, and inclusive of a letter from me inviting families to provide feedback by calling or emailing Mrs. Ferguson. Yes.
Question on that, says that students have their temperature checked before boarding the bus. What's the logistics of that? Are they standing outside of the group and tell each one gets on the bus, or?
So there's we put it, a couple of years ago, we put a bus monitor on each bus. And so the bus monitor steps off, takes temperature. We have a little gun, so it doesn't take very long. Generally at a bus stop, you're not putting the whole load of, I mean, at every bus stop, you're not putting the bus full, you're just picking up a few students at a time.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure we weren't standing in the road.
Oh, no, and they don't stand in the road anyways, they would be in an empty lot, such as the one next door to my house.
Thank you.
They just temp check the bus rider, let the kids getting dropped off and
No,
check them as they're coming
no, we're not doing temp checks on everybody. We're doing them on the buses because we can't mandate masks and they're in very close quarters. So I'm just going ahead and doing the temp checks to see if anyone has a temp. It doesn't catch everything, of course,
in.
but it might catch someone.
They're still allowed to wear the mask if they want, right?
Yes, they are. And so if a student has a temperature, then they're gonna be masked if they have to be put on the bus. So no, we're not doing the whole school anymore.
A lot of moving parts.
This
There is.
is never ending. And we move on to information discussion item E, first reading the ASBA policy advisory volume 33, number 3.
I am not going to go over all of this. There is 122 pages
Yes.
of policy advisories. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence by going over all of this. Next, this is volume 33, number 3, sent to us by ASBA. All these policies are a result of this latest legislative session. So when things happen, their statutes change, they update policies. And so these are the updates to the policies. As a general rule, what we've done as a district is had a first reading, which is this, where it's just a discussion and information item. And then the next board meeting, it's a action item. The way I look at this, my personal belief on this, is that we have no other alternative than to approve these policies because they are in alignment with what our legislators have already decided that they want in place.
Yeah, it's a ton of stuff.
Right, and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this an unusually high amount of policy advisory? Because I don't remember it being like this.
Yeah, The only time we had this many was when we were doing catch-up, when it hadn't been done in a while, but this is huge.
I do have a question on a couple of the items.
Sure.
Again, I won't go into them completely, but on number 688, which I believe is on the first one.
Which one, 680, what? 688, okay.
Do we provide, and do we have the capability to provide that total compensation statement? It's kind of like, can we-
GCB. Page 23.
So you load it up and look.
What is your particular question about this?
The question is, do we have the capability and do we provide that total compensation statement?
We do. We already provide this as an attachment to the contract. So there's a statement that says what your base salary is. The only thing that is not included on that is the medical benefits. What will have to happen is that to add that, it doesn't matter what plan they pick because we pay a certain amount. So we would just have that amount on there, how much the district pays, and what the value of the employer paid portions of an insurance plan premium, that has to be added. An employee, when we bring forth our insurance, I ask them they said, which plans would you like to make available for your employees? I said, all of them. We want it to be their choice. I don't want to say, oh, just 2 or 3, so they get to pick whatever they want. So then but we pay a certain amount per employee. So, but as far as the employer paid portions, that would have to be figured out a little later, but that wouldn't change what we're already doing. And then a lot of this stuff that's listed on here is listed on their pay stubs.
Okay, good.
So it's going to be just a matter of getting the information and putting it on there. But we do have a statement that goes to each contract, but it doesn't have all this. So there's nothing on here that would cost us any more except for time that we don't have. They have this information already. It's just they're making us put it elsewhere.
I think those are the ones that I had questions on that really need to be addressed here. Everything else is just a question of, do we actually do it already, et cetera.
So everyone has that information. It's just in different places. That'll be fun, Tim, huh? You said,
Did you notice the sarcasm in that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
Hashtag sarcasm, right?
the state is good at additional mandates without giving us additional funding to get the help that we need to meet the mandates. Did you have another one, Bill?
We have that. That's a specific answer. So you already answered my question on 687 about the face mask. Nope, I think those are the ones that I had questions on.
Anyone else? Questions? If not, we move on to four, call the public. We have 0 calls to the public. I guess we move on again. So that's that part. Moving past that. So we'll go into action items 5. A 2021, 2022 proposed budget and public hearing.
All right. So we have a budget revision before you that is a pretty massive change from the last budget. One is that the legislature had passed their funding levels for the next year, so we had to revise it reflecting their new funding levels. The second part of that was also that, as Mrs. Rogers alluded to earlier, that our enrollment, I shouldn't say that's our enrollment, but our attendance is considerably lower than what it was pre-COVID and what we had originally budgeted. So we had originally set the budget assuming we would bounce back some from COVID at 940 students. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is the opposite of that. We're actually lower than what we were last year. So we rewrote the budget. We based it on an average daily membership of 825, assuming that the numbers that we have right now will come up just a little bit. I think Mrs. Rogers mentioned 815 is where the average is right now. Hoping that that number bumps up just slightly. And then the other part of that is that we are going to have a larger carryover than what we originally expected. This is showing $323,000 carryover. So that puts our budget at $5,953,662. What we did mention before is that we are going to spend more than that amount of money. And so we will be using the ESSER funds to assist in meeting our budget this year. And we can do so because of the drop in student enrollment and the impact of COVID has had on the school.
Those projected ESSER funds are funds we already have.
Those are funds we already have. So the ESSER 3 grant was $2.6 million roughly. And so we'll be utilizing a chunk of that money in order to maintain our current staff. So that's the budget that is before you and how it was written. And other than that, I mean, the changes, if you look at the budget itself, the vast majority of the changes in teacher salaries, which is what we will divert over to the ESSER funds in order to meet the budget. We did also need to increase SPED funding slightly in order to meet our maintenance of effort, which we have to do every year. So that's the changes that you're seeing in the budget. We are supposed to do it as a public hearing. Do you want to do it as an opening to the public hearing, or do you want me just to ask for questions?
Just ask for it.
All right. Does there anyone have any questions? And it can even come from y'all back here. You good? Okay, great.
How much ESSER funds are we going to dip into? Exactly, do you have
I can't tell you exactly how much, except that I have started to set aside the amount of roughly probably close to $800,000.
Well, we used up ESSER 1 funds already.
Correct.
ESSER 2,
Is about half expended.
and then we have ESSER 3. Pretty much, we're gonna do this, that, and the other plan. But
But if you're wondering how much we're going to dip into to meet this budget,
Yeah, that's what.
right now I'm looking at about $800,000.
That's a shortage.
Yes. So if you go back, so we have not really changed staffing from 2 years ago. We're basically staffing at the same level we were 2 years ago. That original budget 2 years ago was $6.9 million. Now we ended up with $400,000 carryover from that budget. So we actually spent about 6.5. So if you look here, we're at 5,953. If we go and say we've increased some salaries since then, so a $700,000 or $800,000 difference between the two is probably a realistic number.
And that's gonna come out of the ESSER.
That's going to come out of the ESSER.
And
or
the ESSER 3 was what,
2.6 million.
Okay.
And ESSER 2 was 1.2 million. ESSER
And
1
the ESSER 2 is half used up?
Yes, ESSER 2 is approximately halfway used.
Is that money committed somewhere, or is it?
Well, we had it, what I would say, committed, but not firmly committed. So we had things set in the ESSER 2 grant, like summer school for this past year,
Right,
and then summer school for the next couple of years. Now we're going to move some of those over to the ESSER 3 grant, because the ESSER 3 grant now has a requirement that we meet 20% of the budget in the ESSER 3 grant must go to address learning loss.
Right.
So we're gonna move some of those funds over there, which will free up some of the ESSER 2 funds for other purposes that we see fit.
In the ESER twos we were using for to upgrade
Technology.
yeah,
Technology, flooring,
the flooring and the ventilation.
Yeah.
In the water.
yep. The water fountains came out of ESSER 1.
That's right.
Yep, ESSER 1 was the water fountains. The hand washing station over at ACES came out of ESSER 2. We bought some additional technology for the students. We bought 240 more devices. We actually have set aside for another 240 devices if we need them. We also have teacher devices in the ESSER 2 grant to be able to provide new. We were due for new laptops and stuff for the teachers
Right.
anyway, so we upgraded to something that they'll be able to do a little more with the online education if needed. So that's just some of the things that have come out of ESSER 2.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Guess we're gonna move on to, does anybody want to make a motion on the 2021, 2022 proposed budget?
I move that we accept the proposed 2021-22 budget.
Very good. Mr. Courtwright has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Cason has made a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. Moving on to, and I guess this kind of goes back to you again. We have to put them in order like this, so.
That's perfectly fine.
So, B, the American Tower contract.
Okay, so this situation, I guess, with American Tower goes back, a year ago, probably. Yeah. Since before some of you were already on the board, American Tower reached out to us asking if we would be willing to take a $60,000 buyout on their contract for the tower that we have here on the Toltec campus. We had originally accepted that, the board had originally accepted that offer. We were getting documents ready to go to sign, and AT&T knocked on our door and said, hey, we want to come look at your tower. And so that kind of stopped that whole, we kind of went, nope, okay, we're not going to do this $60,000, we're going to wait. And so fast forward several months, and American Tower has reached back out to us and said it's about an 85% chance that that AT&T is going to go on that tower, and that they're now willing to offer us $184,500 to buy out the remainder of the contract, so they would not have to pay us anymore. And then they also made the offer, which I don't know that this is a good offer, but they wanted to possibly extend the contract for an additional 40 years, and give us that option also, which would still have a 10% increase every 5 years. So, excuse me, I put together the spreadsheet that you see with you there. Our current term expires in 2035. If we left things as is, we would bring in $240,306 off that contract. That is assuming that that contract goes to completion. There is a clause in the contract that at any point in time, American Tower can walk away from it and not give us a dime. Okay? So tomorrow they could say, never mind, we don't want to do it anymore. We're going to walk away. We're going to take our tower down. We're going to walk away from the whole process, and we don't get a dime. That's in the contract. It's not very helpful to us as a district, but that is in the contract. We can extend the contract out for an additional 40 years, which would be a complete payout of $1,585,668.
May I interject?
Yes,
We were not here when this
correct.
contract went
That's
into.
when the original building, right?
So, yes, so this is previous administrations that entered into the original.
Yeah.
Right.
We were not part of that contract. It is a contract that was written very friendly toward the American Tower and not really very friendly toward us.
Has American Tower ever given any indication that they would do that?
That they would pull out, they did before AT&T came in. They did basically say, look, we can buy you out, we can buy out the contract, or we could take a reduction in our rent, or they were considering if they couldn't get anybody on the tower, pulling out.
Okay.
Now that there's someone on the tower, are they going to pull out? Probably not, because they're gonna pull money. However, I think that since the contract is written in their favor, that $184,500 is a pretty good offer, considering we would only make $240,000 if they went to completion of the contract. My personal opinion, and you guys can do what you guys want to as a board, is completely on you. I don't like the idea of extending a contract out for 40 additional years and saddling our district with a contract that they can't get out of for 40 more years. That puts it to 2075. I'm probably gonna be dead by then.
Yeah.
I won't be there.
And I don't like the idea of someone, being mad at me for a contract that we wrote in, 2021, to keep that tower there, when we don't know, the school district may need that piece of property at some point, and to put them in the bind where they can't utilize it for 40 more years, 40 additional years on top of the 2035 term.
And how do we know what technology will be advanced by that time? Will we need towers by then? I'm thinking,
Right.
probably no towers. It's telephone.
That's a very good point.
And so that's where I'm coming from.
Won't be the Jetsons by then.
Well, I was supposed to be the Jetsons by now, but that's okay.
By
That's
then
okay.
we will. So even when we put our bond out for election, we did it on a 10-year, because I personally am not comfortable saddling the district with something that's longer term than any of us plan to,
Be alive
or
be here, actually.
be actively involved.
Right.
And also the needs of the district can drastically change within 10 years. So let alone within 40. Look at the changes that have happened in our world in 40 years.
The other part of this contract that we need when you make the motion tonight, depending on which way you go, but if you do make a motion to approve this, we do need it in the motion that you approve Denise and I to sign the contract. We had an issue with the last one, which actually is a good thing it all worked out that way, but we ended up having to come back to the board a second time because they needed it in board minutes that we had approval to sign the contract. Otherwise, we have to send each and every one of you with the contract over to go to a notary on your own time and sign it with the notary. It's just a big headache. So we do need that in your motion that Denise and I both have authority to sign the contract. So however you guys want to go about it.
Well, we're looking at the 184.5, right?
I don't know, the last time we had this was 66,000 or something. And all the members then we agreed right away, let's just do that.
And our reasoning for that is just what I was saying right now. I don't know in how many years, how it's going to be. I try to explain things in my terms. I see technology changing drastically and towers not being a permanent need or necessity in the next 10 years. To be honest with you. I mean, it may be wrong, but why saddle anybody with anything else? So I'm lose the money. Right?
So we get 185,000 lump sum. And what physically happens to the tower?
It stays there. It stays there. They will put, AT&T will probably come put their equipment on the tower. The tower stays active. They're still going to utilize the tower. At 2035, the contract ends and they have to come remove the tower.
Do we have any obligation for liability for the property or anything?
No, they take this. Do we have any liability?
If we take the 185,000
What do you mean by do we have any liability? What not?
For the property.
for the property, is it somebody walks on it and God kills himself on the tower?
They carry a liability.
All pertinent questions? Any other
Yeah.
questions? All,
Very good question.
any other questions? All right, does anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we choose the lump sum payment option 2 and endorse Denise Rogers and Tim Benke to sign a contract on our behalf.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Mr. Doherty has made a motion, and Mr. Casey has made a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. Moving on to action item C, 2192 combined resolution affecting the county treasurer's transactions.
Did we just sign that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is just the formality.
That's pretty well.
Two are, right?
But anybody has any questions?
They just monitor and make sure that we're doing things that we should be doing with the finances that we have. And these are for the bank accounts.
So I take it, we all know what it's for. It's just formality. So do we have can I get a motion for this?
Your motion to approve the 2021-2022 combined resolution affecting county treasurer transact.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Casey. We have a second. And Mr. Dougherty has made a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against? Motion passes. We're moving on to another formality. So action item D, 4-day school week instruction week statement.
House Bill 2862 repealed the Arizona Revised Statute 15861. So basically, we needed a statement from the board that we're operating on a 4-day instructional week and that we had the required meetings before we started a 4-day school week, and we aren't going to make any changes. So our statement is Toltec School District number 22 has been operating with a 4-day instructional week for 15 years. This current school year commences the 16th year for a continued 4-day instructional model. Before the 4-day instructional model was adopted to launch in school year 2006-2007, the required public meetings were held. As we begin the district's 16th year of the 4-day instructional framework, we approve to continue the use thereof.
Any questions?
Basically, we're just staying 4 days.
Right, we're not changing.
But those districts that are changing to a 4-day have to have meetings and they have to do, but we've
We did that a long time.
a long time.
You know, none of us were here on this board when that happened, but I tend to,
I was a teacher at that time, and I do remember the meetings and the excitement.
All right, well, I'll motion to approve the required statement in regards to our 4-day instructional week.
all right, we have a motion by Mr. Casey. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Mr. Dougherty has made a second.
No.
No, you didn't. I'm sorry, Mr. Courtwright has made a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against? Motion passes. Early kindergarten registration.
Ms. Hoffman is requesting that a 4-year-old that she has determined to be school ready be allowed to attend school at Arizona City Elementary School.
And obviously, I'm not a teacher, and I don't know how to grade these things, so I go by your understanding of what children, if they're able to do it, and I accept. I would accept it. Anyone else have any questions?
No, I trust Mrs. judgment on this.
She says it's good, it's good. She says
It's
she
good, it's good.
did an assessment, so that's
Yes.
good enough for me.
Very good. So, do I have a motion on the early kindergarten registration?
I motion we approve the early kindergarten registration.
Mr. Casey has made a motion for the early kindergarten registration. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Mr. Gray has made a second. All in favor, say aye. All against? Motion passes. The online teacher led instruction professional position.
We've had one teacher, we just finished our first 2 weeks of school, assigned to the task of teaching all the students that are enrolled in teacher-led online instruction. And so there's not a huge amount of students in the class, but they're in all different grade levels. And our curriculum, the teacher has to go in and, into each grade level. And so this is quite time consuming. So we're asking for your approval of the addition of a full-time paraprofessional to assist in the teacher-led online instruction.
Is that reflected in the budget we just passed?
That's exactly what I was.
Well, that's the question for,
This position would be paid for out of COVID money.
So
Out of the ESSER 2 or ESSER 3, yes.
I will say this, two things. I don't bring anything to you without checking a budget first. Secondly, if we don't do something, this teacher is gonna break her back. It's too much. So we do need, she does need help. And we'll be looking at this as we go along. I mean, we may need to reassign teachers and if we have more enrolling in, we don't know what that looks like, but right now we need this to get this teacher some help.
again, this is not a set in stone type of thing. I think this is just a momentary because of COVID and what it's been doing to us. I've always said that this has been backbreaking work for everybody to figure out the stuff on COVID, and let's try and figure out how to do it right. And let's get some help in there, figure out how to do it right,
Yeah.
ease some pain for everybody a little bit, because this has just been too long and too painful for a lot of people. And right now, I'm willing to say that we just got to figure this out.
Okay. So the current one's covering all grades?
Yes.
Yeah, she needs help.
Yes. So it's like a one-room schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the old days. I was doing.
Except in those days, we didn't have a bunch of standards that you had to teach and per grade level and
Remember
things
those
were a little.
days? Uphill both ways.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, goodness. Oh.
Yes.
in the snow.
In the
In the snow.
Don't forget the snow.
Here's in the rain.
In Washington, it was snowshoes. I actually had to use snowshoes to get to my bus stop.
My goodness.
And Minnesota, it was uphill both ways.
Yeah.
One and up the other.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I will quickly say that one year, we had a teacher, Mrs. Porterfield, actually had,
Oh,
her
yes,
canoe
She got
to
her.
get from her house to another teacher's vehicle to get to school. Yes,
I canoe.
yes,
Wow. Yes, she did.
yes. She had to paddle her way from her home. Oh, so that's why I was saying in the rain, because sometimes.
I remember people coming into work on cross-country snow skis. I was like, what are you nuts?
Well,
Yeah.
this situation brought tears to my eyes. I was the principal and it really touched my heart. I saw the video. I was like, oh my goodness, this is newsworthy. But moving along, we need a para for this teacher.
So let's make a motion. Do I have a motion for online teacher-led instruction paraprofessional position?
I'm making a motion for addition of a online teacher and led instruction paraprofessional position.
Do we have a motion by Mr. Gray? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Dowdy has seconded. All in favor, say aye. All against? Motion passes. We're moving on to G, summer school change to tutoring classes.
We already went through that.
We
did.
talked about it.
I already talked about it, so what you do is what you have before you is a changed calendar. So there's a couple of really good things besides this being better for students, I believe, because this supports remedial intervention throughout the school year. That's better for
That's right,
students.
yeah.
That was a great idea.
Yes. And then we always have classified staff that work, to assist when we have summer school sessions. And so this will give them an opportunity to be paid because they're not paid when we're not in school. So I think it's best for,
It's an all around.
I think so. And then our summers shrunk when we moved to this calendar, which this is a good calendar. But this will give the teachers who are willing to teach that summer school tutoring classes or the summer tutoring classes a chance to have more of a break.
Good all around.
I think so.
Anybody have any questions at all about that?
I do want to say that a student wouldn't have to sign up for the whole thing. They can sign up for a week of one of the breaks and sign up for,
Well, if they just need tutoring for that one time, that moment in time, and they don't need it for a later date, then they can pick and choose. Sounds like a win-win, I hope.
Yes.
You see as a bonus. So if anybody wants to make, and again, you're right, we did discuss this, but I think it's good to look at the calendar to see where we're going with this takes. So, anyone want to make a motion on summer school change to tutoring classes?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
Approve the summer school change to tutoring class.
Beautiful, that's good, Mr. Case, and do I have a second? Okay, we have everybody else making a second.
I said it first, so you-
Oh. Oh.
Get the next one, Jim.
No, he thirded it.
He thirded it, yeah.
All right, so Mr. Courtright, I'll give him the second this time, you can move on with that one. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. All against? Motion passed.
Thank you for that laugh.
Okay, we removed that, let's try again, let's rewind that one. Action item H, expenses incurred for bus drivers.
We're always competing with other districts, including Bocacho, for school bus drivers. And anytime you want a job, you can drive bus for us. Yeah, okay. Anyways, so we're just bringing this to you that it costs an individual who wants to drive bus about $200 for the requirements that we don't pay for. We pay for, what is it that we pay for? The medical screening.
Yeah, and then we pay for their training themselves because we pay our bus trainers.
We have two of our bus personnel that were trained to be trainers. So we do as much as we can, but we have to have an outside party come in and do part of it, which is a, mandate of the state.
The qualifications. So,
And then what they have to pay the state for their tests. So we're just saying that, asking that we cover the cost of this for our, the testing requirements and for our incoming bus drivers. This will be easier. We're trying, we have a van driver right now who is working on becoming a bus driver. We want all of our van drivers to work on becoming bus drivers. I would like for our newly hired maintenance workers to work on getting their CDL. I did tell Angel that I wanted that to be a requirement. And so this will help our, $200 can be a lot of money. And so this will just help them get the requirement they need to be
well,
bus
and
drivers.
that helps us too, because
It
then
helps us too.
more people will be able to be bus drivers. And we're all
Is there a,
fighting for that.
Yes.
is there a continued employment requirement? In other words, if I don't come to you guys, get paid my $200 and go to Philtech or someplace else.
Yeah. we can do that.
I think that ought to be in there, otherwise it'll be.
I agree
We're gonna
that
pay
that's
for
it. I agree that that's a good thing to, so we could, what we've done in the past, when we've paid, we've gone 2 years. Well, actually, it's already,
I think it's
if
part
we're
of the training.
training them,
Yeah.
we already have that in effect. So that if we're gonna train them to drive a bus, that they're going to agree to drive for us for at least 2 years.
Okay,
We already have that in place, so.
well, doesn't this $200 incur before that occurs? Wouldn't they have to pay out this $200 before they actually started training with us?
No. No, you take your,
So we figured they would get this $200 after they agreed to buy drive bus for us for 2 weeks.
Yeah, is it like they pay it first and then you reimburse them?
Yes,
Are you paying
that will have to be out of the state care, yes.
yes.
Because we won't have a way to pay directly to motor vehicle for it. So
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
and
they'll
then
have to bring in a receipt.
Bring in their proof. And then
I want to,
after 2 years, you get your money back. Huh?
oh. Without interest. So, I want to ask my husband, who does drive bus, there's more than one test to take with the state, correct?
You have to take 3 or 4 online and pass them all passenger, class B and a variety of them. So you have to pay every time you take them, and they're not easy. So sometimes it takes multiple times to pass. Most people, unless they really, crash, they don't pass the first time. So
Hopefully they don't crash.
No.
slip of the tongue. Let me rephrase that.
Do a crash course.
But we do the same thing. We require 2 years of employment, and if they leave prior to that time, then they need to pay us back for those expenses that we incurred, pay for their CDL.
So is that the same way we do it for the teachers then?
For the teachers.
When they leave early beyond their.
That's liquidated damages, those are.
That's liquidated damages written. A teacher is it's a different, that's a contract, and those who are not certificated have a work agreement. So this is not in their work agreement, but we could, as you make your motion, you can, add those things to it. I wasn't aware of how Picacho did it. I didn't have the discussion with my husband, so if you wanna, however you wanna make your motion, we can change what our requirements are as we train employees to drive bus.
So would you recommend we table it, add to it, and pass it next time, or do you want
No.
to just say that in the motion?
I would like to get this, because we already have those that are working on it now, so I would like to get this taken care of today, so you would save this in your motion.
So do I have anybody who would wish to make a motion on this? Or do we have more discussion?
I move that we approve the district coverage of the expenses incurred for bus drivers with the addition to an employment, guaranteed employment period as condition of reimbursement. Is that right?
Does anyone wish to make a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Mr. Doherty has made a motion, and Mr. Gray has made a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against? Passes. Moving on to out-of-state power school training, aye.
Our two secretaries, Dominique Sites and Rachel Young, are requesting your approval to attend Power School University training in Florida in February. And they would need to enroll after, if you approve this, after approval, if you do grant approval, so that they can get into this training. There's only 2 trainings a year in Power School. There was one offered in July, and it was too near when we were starting back to school. The secretaries had to be there for enrollment, but they are asking to be able to attend the second one, which happens to be in Florida, so that, so they can be more proficient in maintenance of our student accounting system. There is more and more that we add to Power School, and Power School is very challenging it's not user-friendly, I would say. And so we don't want to lose any funding, and we want them to be able to operate Power School for the advantage of the district.
And this, obviously, again, this would come out of our
Yes, with this, they do scheduling and all this stuff, and we have different types of scheduling, we have online, we have all kinds of things, and it becomes more complicated with COVID. So it would come out of the COVID grant.
because of the fact that most of it, a lot of it has to do with COVID, so.
Do we have a estimate with the classes?
Yes, it is in their letter, and the estimate
Very
is,
bottom,
It's on the very bottom in red.
and red, and
about $8,725, so
Except we don't have that credit for the 2,000, so it's
So it's about
actually 10,000.
$10,000. The tuition is $4,400. Is that
That's total.
that's total, so it's $2,200 per person. And then they're guessing on how much the flights would be. I would imagine if we get flights this early, we can get them at a lower rate than that. Yeah, so we would be able to book those flights now and save. And then their accommodations. And in here, they said transportation to and from the airport, approximately $100. Generally speaking, you can call your resort and they come and pick you up free, so imagine save that $100. So,
When they go to Jacksonville, if they go to Jacksonville, they can say, "Hello, my relatives down." All right. With
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I can't get behind that. I mean, I'm all for training. I think I mentioned that before. Lots of people have training, that's pretty steep price tag.
yes.
I think training is expensive, especially on-site, full-week training. My experience, I wouldn't expect to pay any or very little less for 2 people to go for training. It would be at least close to this for a week-long conference. So in my experience, I don't see this as exorbitant. However, we are in a different budget environment than SAS has been sending classes. Just my input.
Is this? Does this, is there a state requirement? And I only say you're right, training, that's the cost, that's how much.
The training costs you could deal with, but then you're at like almost 6,000 to that on top to go all the way across the country.
What do we lose if we only send one person?
These two individuals have the same job. So I would say that it would be unfair to send one person. It's not like you're sending the superintendent, you know. It's,
In most of my experience with training, you send one person there, leave, they come back, they're expected to pass it on to train others. That's
So
what I do sometimes.
that's what we do here, like when we come back from the law conference, Mr. Gray and Mr. Leopard will give an update to all of you on what they've learned and all that. That's what we do here also. But as I said, Power School is extremely complicated. So my husband's school just switched to Power School, and it's complicated, isn't it, babe?
Well, since you asked, thanks to Debbie for helping my secretary, because we're pretty much lost. So thanks for helping us.
You're welcome. Missy, do you have anything to add?
The most important thing I want to express is Power School is linked to a lot of our money. And if we don't train our staff right, that's going to lead to errors. And errors will lead to money loss. So that's my only big concern, is that our staff is properly trained. And we wish there was one closer and cheaper, but there just isn't.
That's a good point, babe.
Well, there's 2 of them a year. Are they all in Florida? Or?
I don't know where.
They always have 2 a year, but generally we don't feel that we need to send them because there's not all the changes. But with all the remote learning and the strict requirements we have because of COVID, they just can't learn these things on their own.
And I'm looking at the requirements. And we have all these requirements that we have to live up to now because of the COVID. And I think we would do ourselves a disservice if we didn't send somebody there to get this, or send them there to get the information that we need badly because of this. They're pushing the limits of every school. I think they're forcing everybody to do things that we've never encountered before, and they're sometimes I think, are they doing it on purpose? I mean, do they really want us to fail? So I just don't want us to fail. I want us to give an effort. Is the money, it's old. That's a lot of money.
And
But if we don't get them trained now, we do have that. We do have the ESSER money. If we don't get them trained now, when we have the money, if in the future when we don't have the money and they really have to have it, what do we do then?
Do we know if Power School does on-site training? Well, they send one of their people here to train our people.
We have a consult that we can call, and it costs money, but training,
Well, I can answer some of that. We're learning now, and when we call the support personnel, they say, go to this website and click on this thing, and that's pretty much where it stops. So I would answer that and say no.
So we don't know if Power School company itself will send someone here to train us to replicate instead of 2 of our people going down there.
You can barely get people to talk to you.
My experience.
They don't. They don't.
They don't have-
I've worked with Power School, they don't.
It's I'm I'm working with, if we don't do it now, we're never gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
And they need the training.
To me, with all the changes that are apparently coming through,
And there's gonna be,
that's going, and as she mentioned, it's any advantage they can take in the new system will make us money. Allow us to be more, to be eligible for more money, which, essentially is offsetting some of this training costs. But do we think, do we have any indicator that, once the Power School training is done, we'll be able to retain that knowledge? Those people are gonna stay here.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking too. What if we train them and then they move on?
Well, Rachel has been at Toltec Elementary School. Well, actually, she started with us. I remember her working in food services when I was a teacher there at Toltec Elementary School. It was on the ACES campus. So, and then she worked in special education as a secretary. So she's been with the district for several years. She did leave us briefly and came right back. Dominique's, as far as I know, she's committed to, do you know any differently, Mrs.
She has
Ferguson?
children here and she wants to be here. She wanted to be a teacher, but has decided to help the school out because she has children and her youngest is second grade and wants to be working at the schools until her kids are out.
Doesn't she have 3 children?
She has 3
School?
children, but the youngest is in second grade.
I wish they would have came in so we could
Mhm.
talk.
well, I know Rachel, yeah. And she'll stay.
If you guys aren't comfortable passing this tonight, you can always put it off till next month and we can ask for them to come here for you to ask them questions if you would feel more comfortable doing that.
I would, but will it interrupt them getting into it if we decide to send them? Is there a time frame where they have to register? Will this disrupt that?
It fills up as far as what I hear, and when they get filled up, but when would that be, I'm not sure.
Even if we pass this, doesn't mean they can't come in and we can talk to them about it.
How big of a bite is it on our leftover budget, Tim?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, say it again.
How big of an impact is it on our budget? $10,000, is it 40%, is it 1%?
We're going to justify it through COVID money. So the funds are there to be able to do it. And we can definitely utilize it in that way. It will, if everything, if they're utilizing the knowledge that they gain, it can potentially help us in our, making sure our ADM is correct, making sure there's no mistakes, making sure things are done to the best of our ability. So I do think that, the funds are there through the ESSER funds. We can definitely support.
That all of the discussion here tends me to lead more to agree with. And just like the vote, get over it.
And that's my whole thing. I see somewhere down the line, honestly, them having to really know this stuff because they're gonna throw more stuff at us.
well, yeah, well, I just don't know Power School or what it all involves, and it would have been good if we had like a layout of what they were gonna be, what kind of like a schedule of what they were gonna be attending and learning. And
The Power School is sort of like your smartphone. It has the capacity to do a ton of stuff. So for instance, when I was a vice principal and I was putting in discipline infractions, I could have gone on and on and on and put more and more and more and more information in there. We used about a quarter of about 25% of what was possible to use just in the area of discipline. Then we could generate reports off of the information that we had put in there. PowerSchool is directly linked because it's our student. We don't have to have PowerSchool, but we do have to have some sort of a student accounting system.
Right.
And we've had PowerSchool for a few years. So I don't know what we had before
I
that.
know I get my kids' grades in PowerSchool.
The students' parents can get grades. So the grades are in there, attendance is in there, just everything on the student is in there. And except for IEPs. And there is a possibility to, from what I understand, to even do that there. I mean, there's just the possibilities to use it, in an expansive manner. The it is directly, the state gets information from PowerSchool on our enrollment and how the kids are, our ADM, so their attendance, and then that's how we're paid. So if there's mistakes made in there, that I was talking about that 10-day drop, it's done by the state. So those 10 days, they drop them. If anyone's absent for 10 days during them, let's say a student got sick and they're fully enrolled, they're coming back, but they missed 10 days because they're sick, the state drops them and then they don't get paid for them for that month. So our funding comes from what the state gets out of PowerSchool. So as far as our ADM and our enrollment and things like this, we have lost some money in the past with some mistakes that have been made.
It sounds to me like it's, when we had that 122 pages to read, in my mind, it kept clicking. Is there a database program that has all this information? It sounds like PowerSchool pretty much connects all of this. Is that kind of correct?
It doesn't have policies in there. That's ASBA, which connects to board docs.
Okay, but it does have the attendance part.
Yes.
And all of that is vital to carrying out these policies properly. The information that would be at your fingertips. Because, there's a lot of requirements in there that has to be, it's dictated by numbers. And what this program, it is a program, isn't it actually?
Yes.
Okay, so if we're not up to base with what's going on, I can see our system, our school system, falling way behind. And if we do, I'm like with Mark, if we have that money available through a COVID fund, like Tim's saying, I don't see why we don't use it. Because I am kind of like Mark. Those funds in another year, 2, 3 could vanish. And at that point, we would be 1, 2, 3 years behind. And I think it's very expensive. I'm with Bill on that side. And the same with Tim, that price, when I looked at that things aren't cheap anymore. They just aren't. It's kind of a shame that we can't get them to come out and train us.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
That's really,
Well, that's,
I've been dealing with software sales and stuff for decades, and to find a company that won't come and do on-site training is very rare.
And there would be a Kacho to join in,
yes.
And they usually have some sort of a break. If they come to train you, there's, if you have 5 students or less, it's this. If you have more, they get a little bit more. So it's usually that way. One thing that also, I guess it was Tim's question that made me ask this. They're saying that the ladies have said that they have a course catalog of over 50 different classes to choose from. They they haven't specified for us in this letter which ones they want to go to and why.
See, that's what, yeah, I was
My
getting at.
concern is that the things that we want them to learn for, going forward, upping our presence, these may or may not be the ones they choose to get, or have thought ahead of getting into this. It sounds like a kind of an open forum. Every 2 hours we switch, go to different seminars and pick on site. When if we have a better feeling that they said, you feel they're going to need these 5 specific courses and they're going to make sure they get to those, then I would certainly feel better about it.
Well, if you wanted to specify in your recommended action that Ms. Huffman go over the courses that they would like to go over the course catalog and kind of help them choose, you can definitely do that. I want to just add that a lot of districts, not Picacho, but a lot of districts, I hear superintendents all the time saying, I'm going here and there, and I'm offered, to attend all these conferences that are all over the country. And I don't do that to save the district money. And we used to go out of state for a week at a time to just try to get teachers to just go to recruiting. And we don't do any of that anymore either. So we are doing everything that we can to save money in that respect, with going out of state. No one has gone out of state since Misty and I went out of state to recruit teachers in Michigan for a week and for 5 days. How many years ago was that?
What, 4 or 5 years?
Oh, yeah. That's when I hired Ryder. So however long he's worked for us is when it happened. So I would say 7 years. There's my 7 years. I think it was maybe, let's see, maybe the summer of 16, 17, the summer of 16, summer of 2016, probably, to hire for the 16, 17 school year.
Well, like James was pointing out, we asked Tim as well, and Mark, of course, he said, spend the money now while we have it, get the benefit for it, but I'm with Tim, I would like to see a bit more. I've been to these things, and you can spend your day by the pool.
Yeah.
I hate that phrase, by the way, I shouldn't have used it, I apologize.
I'm the kind, so to me, it's not.
Well, I lived in Jacksonville
I've never-
and I've been to Amelia, it's beautiful, so you could get distracted.
Well, I could go to the power school training and come back and train everyone on all of this power school stuff.
By the way, that's.
Oh, or Miss Huffman could go.
We're sending all the district staff, is that what you said?
I'm gonna say that if you guys aren't comfortable with this, that if it's meant to be, that there'll still be room for 2 of them, and that we have them be here at the next meeting and kind of go over, they'll have a plan for what they would attend. In the meantime, we can check and see if Power School would be open to coming and doing the training for us, and we can invite Picacho in. Picacho is desperate to have some training also. We can see what our options are. If you guys are not comfortable doing this tonight, and I'm hearing some vacillation back and forth, and we're spending at least half of the meeting on this agenda item. So if
I
you,
think me and Bill are on the same page, we'd like a little more.
Well, no,
It's a
it's,
lot of money.
it's understandable, but
You know,
what I'm looking at is what courses they're taking. That's my biggest advent to this. What are they like? Do we agree with what they pick and choose?
what are we
What
spending?
are we spending it on? Right.
Do we have to wait till the next board meeting for them to present, or can they just send a memo to all of us, or I'm not sure what that.
Well, I think we could go with Principal Huffman, that if she could go over the courses with them, we could pass it. go over the courses with it, send us a memo or an email, and then we can, because I want them to go. And I want them to have good courses, and I want them to do what's best for us.
Yep.
And I trust Ms. Huffman and Mrs. Rogers to go through those and pick and choose where they're gonna go and what they're gonna do.
You could approve for their attendance, pending, or you could approve for their attendance with the, consultation with the principal on the courses that they're gonna take, if a training can't be scheduled in our district, so you could do it that way we have some before the next meeting, we could act in a couple of weeks instead of waiting.
I think that's well stated.
Very good. Does someone wish to make a motion?
I move that we do it.
You moved to do what she just said? Well, you know what? We're all gonna accept that. I appreciate it.
I'll second that.
Okay. So I have a motion by Mr. Dougherty to accept what she just said. And,
You wanna know what it is?
I need details, sorry.
Okay, I'll-
Okay, you're good to the report.
Yeah, you're close. And Mr. Gray has seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against? We'll move on to J.
We have a teacher who has resigned her position as special education teacher on the Arizona City campus for employment at a different district with a higher starting pay. I have spelled out here the liquidated damage as is stated in each teacher's contract. So you need to, tonight, to make a decision. You've got two teachers with resignations, one from ACES and one from Toltec. This first one is on the ACES teacher, and per consensus, you need to approve the resignation. This teacher is already gone, and either waive the contracted liquidated damage or hold the teacher responsible for the $2,000 in liquidated damages as per signed contract.
Well, she wants the extra money, so I'm here, she can pay the liquidated damages, because she came here, she read it, she knew what she was getting into, and she walked, so.
Part of her decision.
And that's her decision, so, and this is my decision to say, liquidated damages, but, anybody else have anything to say?
I think that's fair.
So if anybody wants to make a motion about the Arizona Elementary School resignation and liquidated damages of $2,000. Okay, I just made a motion. Okay, second by Mr. Dowdy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion, any against, sorry. Motion passed. Moving on down to the Toltec Elementary School teacher resignation.
This teacher resigned with her last day stated in her resignation letters to be this Thursday, but circumstances resulted in an agreement between the teacher and Ms. Huffman that this past Thursday would be her last day of employment.
This is the future that had issues after she.
We can't discuss any staff.
Say that again.
We're not allowed to discuss any staff member in open session or at any time without letting them know and then meeting with them in closed session.
Well, I feel the same in this one. I feel exactly the same in this one.
Yeah, we're on.
You sign your contract, you relinquish that contract, you pay the damages. So, the Toltec Elementary teacher resignation, I believe that, she should pay the liquidation damages. And, want to make a motion?
A motion to approve Roxanne Talashi's resignation, and she be held responsible for the 2000 and liquidated damage.
All right, Mr. Kazin has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Barry has made a second. All in favor, say aye. All against? Motion passes. Now we're looking at the next meeting date.
The 13th is the second Monday in September, but there's an issue with that. And the issue is that that law conference is going to be the week preceding the 13th. So in speaking with Mr. McCain, I asked him about what he faces, what his duties are, and the AFR, the annual financial report, is due October 15th. When we look at October 15th is this ends the second week of fall break. It's on a Friday, and the district office is going to be closed during the fall break. So for him to be able to get all of the information he needs to compose the AFR, which is due October 15th, we're asking that you schedule the board meeting for the last week of September to give him time to do that, since the district office will be closed for fall break, so the floors can be done.
So we're talking about the 27th.
Yes, for that week.
It's a 50% chance I have to go out of state for training.
Who's paying for this? Are you paying for it? Not Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida.
You'd have chosen a better place, so. I said, top.
Well, you could always stay here
I
to
could.
attend.
They'll tell you what they're gonna train me on.
We'll see if we can send somebody over to take care
We strike that from the 27th should be able to make it. I am trying desperately to get out of going to the training to Massachusetts at all.
You
You gotta practice this, park the car.
I don't know, yeah.
Hey, that's where I grew up in that.
Take me to the packing.
Park the car.
Tim will go there.
My old town.
Yes,
Yeah, you know, it's,
Where you going, Boston?
Boston, right outside Boston Mall. Should be beautiful fall house and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You can always call in.
That's true.
Well, anybody else? 27?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. 27?
Right? Thank you for that.
And
Here,
Well,
now we need a motion for the adjournment. So I have a motion for somebody to adjourn.
what you do adjourn?
All right, Mr. Gates made a motion.
I'll second.
Yes. Okay, we have Mr. Courtwright's been a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion passed.
You got it off?
Dang.